If you've ever felt like budgeting is confusing, restrictive, or just not working for you, you're in the right place because tonight I've compiled the 10 most frequently asked budgeting questions in my free community, Dollar Discipline University. And I feel like I'm qualified to speak on this topic because not only have I been a corporate accountant for the last almost 12 years now, I've been budgeting my own personal finances for the last decade. And I can point to me starting budgeting as the reason why I got out of the paycheck to paycheck cycle. Okay. So I'm a big fan of budgeting. And in this video, yeah, we're going to talk about the 10 questions that keep coming up time and time again. And hopefully this helps you. So let's jump into the first question that I received. What's the best budgeting strategy? Ooh, okay. So kind of a general question to start out. And in order to show you, wanted to and if you look at this list, okay, I'm not going to really go through them, but if you look at this list, any one of these would probably work for you if you just put in the time to make it work. Okay. So there's about like 20, 30 things here, and there's probably more strategies and methods than what are showing on the screen here. So basically, um, the best budgeting strategy, it's it's simply the one that you're going to stick with. And I know that's kind of a general stupid answer, but it's true because that whole list, the reason why I wanted to show you that is all of those work. That's why they're like methods, right? People have done them in the past. Now, is it the right one for you? I don't know. We have to kind of play around with that, and that's what you have to see. So, um, a quick little story about my background in terms of how I budgeted. Okay. And the reason why I started budgeting 10 years ago was out of need. And I'm going to get into that story now. So basically, it was a Friday afternoon. It was the day before I was about to make the biggest purchase of my life. It was a new car at the time. I've never done anything close to that dollar amount. So I was going to go to the dealership the Saturday morning, hand them my deposit check, whatever, and drive home with a pretty new car. It's going to be great. So I'm sitting at my 9 to 5. I'm in my desk, and this panic went over me. Like, oh my God, wait, do I even have enough money in my account to make this check happen? Because mm, I panicked. So I specifically remember going to the internet to check my bank balance. So I must not have had the bank app on my phone 10 years ago. I don't know if that was a thing or not. And I specifically remember I went in, I looked at the account balance, and my heart just sunk because I was $1,500 short, and I had to give them a check in like, I don't know, 36 hours or something like that. So I was like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? So basically, I was able to scramble money together. Like my then girlfriend at the time, my now wife, she gave me, loaned me money that she didn't really have either. And yes, I paid her back, but it got to, transferred to my account. It wasn't going to get there in time for the check for the next day. So I went into the dealership and I was like, I gave my sob story. They didn't love it, but I was like, can you just like not cash this check until Tuesday? They agreed because they'd rather just get the car off the lot and deal with me later, right? So I was somehow able to get the car off the lot. I drove it home, and on the way home, most times when people probably buy their first car, they're very excited. They're exploring the car on the way home. They're whatever. They're testing the speeds. Like for me, I was furious with myself. I was embarrassed, and I was like, that was my hell no moment. And I was like, there is no way that I can ever let something like this ever happen to me again. So I'm bringing this up because the best budgeting strategy for me when I first started was just knowing how much money was in my bank account. Now, that's not really budgeting per se, but at least it's like a tracking process. Whereas, because that was the thing, I didn't know how much money was in there. So it's like, okay, I'm going to look at my bank account very frequently. And it turned into like a daily thing for me, just like wake up, do whatever I'm doing in the morning, check the bank account, right? Obviously over time you want to start getting more information. So it turned into like, okay, well, I know how much is in there now. This is great, but is it going up or down every month? And then that turned into, okay, but how are my expenses being broken out into what categories, and what's the majority of how I spend my money, and like what's the overarching theme of what's going on monthly in my finances? And it turned into like this obsession that was snowballing for me. um and I tried many different types of strategies. Like there's this cash only strategy, I've tried that. There's a bi-weekly strategy. There's other like different strategies of percentages of income that you use. I tried all of them, okay? But the point is, it does not matter at the end of the day. So Sorry if that doesn't fully answer the question there, but find one that seems reasonable. So and then just go forward with that. It's all about more just doing something in the beginning instead of trying to optimize around it. Okay. Question number two. How do I start a budget if I've never done one before? Okay, great question. And actually, I have a free budgeting template, and I'm going to kind of show you how to I walk through this. And you can actually find this inside my free community, Dollar Discipline University. Okay. This is the budget tab. Okay. This is the budget tab. Sorry. And this is what we do before the budget. So if you've never set up a budget before, what you actually need to do is pre-think about the budget. And what we do is we do something called the 3-month look back. Now, what happens here is we are just like the name says, we're going to go back 3 months and look at where we spent our money. And so I'm recording this stream in February. So for this example, we have November, December, and January columns, okay? And we want to do this for our variable expenses. You can do this for all of your expenses, but the variable is most important because things like your I don't know, if you have car insurance or rent or mortgage, like you know that those are going to stay the same every single month. Those are more of a fixed expense. The variable expense are the things that you're probably not keeping track of very well because if you've never done this before, you're not tracking it, and maybe you have thoughts in your head of how much you think you're spending. But once you do this process, and let me tell you, the people that actually go through this process and they want to get a result, they are always surprised at how much they're spending in, insert category. Like, wow, I didn't think I was actually spending this much. And a lot of times it turns into they are spending at or more than the money that they're making, which is a problem. And that's kind of why they feel like they can't get ahead. It's because they're just at zero all the time, right? In terms of they make money and then all that money just gets spent every single month and it doesn't go towards anything efficient. So basically, what you do is however you spend your money, credit cards, debit cards, whatever, you go back to the statements and you plug in numbers for each of the categories. So think things like groceries, gas, utilities, things that you buy all the time and pay for all the time, but that fluctuate month to month, right? It'll give you an idea of where your spending is. So we do that for all 3 of the months. We get an average. And then from there, we can look at our average and be like, oh, okay, do any of these things align with a life goal or a financial goal? And how we do that is what I like to do is write down 2, 5, 10 things that are most important in your life. And you write them down. And then you look at this, your spending, and then you ask yourself if your spending is aligned with those goals. And if you've never done this before, they will most likely not be aligned at all. And this is basically how you start. And then you create a new budget amount based on the average where it's like, okay, if I think I'm spending, like I like to use health and fitness, for example. Let's say your average is $63 a month for health and fitness. And you're like, wow, that was one of the 5 things that I wrote on my very important list. But I'm only spending $63 a month. So it's like, how am I going to, I need to increase it, right? Because budgeting, it's not about what we can't do with our money. It's what we can do with our money. And we should be pushing it towards the things that matter to us the most. So it's not just, hey, I have to cut everything out of every category. It's no. Sometimes it's, yeah, we need to cut some places, but also we need to push more money to the things that matter to us most. And then if something's not on the list of our 5, 10 most important things, then it's totally fine to trim around those edges. And by the way, a little side note, I say this every time, I think I need to get a percentage of the people that actually say this, but the dining out and food delivery category is everyone's category where they're like, wow, I can't believe I'm spending this much every time. It happens every time. So a little foreshadowing for if you were going to do this process yourself, I would look there first. But basically, yeah, you create a new budget amount based on how much you've been spending and then how much you think you should be spending going forward. And this flows into the budget template, which maybe if we have time at the end of the stream here, we can kind of go into the actual budget and go through the example. But yeah, the budget template you can get in my free free community, Dollar Discipline University. That's in the description of this video. Okay. So that was number two. How do I start a budget if I've never done one? It's basically, yeah, you just need to put in the work now of all your like historical spending. And before you object and be like, isn't this going to take me a long time? Probably. It's probably going to be a pain in the ass. But what it does is actually, a lot of the people, again, that have gone through this, they say at first, so this is probably how the cycle will work for you. At first, it feels like this huge project and it's like, oh my God, how am I going to do all of it? Right. And then they start doing it and they're like, oh, this isn't that bad. Oh, I'm not dying. Oh, I can just keep doing this and I'm not dying. So don't think of it like, oh, I have to look at 3 months. If that feels very intimidating, just like start with 1 month. Do that. And it honestly opens people's eyes and they're like, wow, I've been making a lot of mistakes, but the good thing is I'm actually in control of my spending and my finances. So uh yes, I've put myself in this mess and I was nervous to look at it, but now that I've looked at it, this is easy. I can make changes, and that's what people end up doing. Okay. So if you're joining me now, drop your comments in the chat, guys. I'd love to answer a live question from you. If you're watching on the replay, make sure to drop it down in the comments below this video, and I'm going to read every single one of them. And if you guys like this format, I'll make another one like this, and I'm going to pull the best questions from the comments from the chat. Okay. The next question here, number 3. How do I budget if my income is inconsistent or I get paid irregularly? Okay. So this is a pretty common thing that not everyone gets a consistent paycheck. And what you can actually do is, let me share my screen again. We're back in the budget template. What you can actually do here is you can create something similar. So I'm just going to make a duplicate here. You could do something similar to the 3-month look back. So we're just going to add like another column. Okay, let's say you want to do this, and let's say we'll add February. Sorry, I'm not in a good spot to like type here, but this could be like paycheck 1, paycheck 2, paycheck 3, paycheck 4. Like let's say you and your partner you guys have 4 different paychecks, and then you have like side hustle 1, side hustle 2, and then you just go through similar to the 3-month look back. And you just fill out like, okay, how much did paycheck 1 get us in all these months? How much did paycheck 2 get us? Paycheck 3, paycheck 4, side hustle 1, side hustle 2, like basically any income that you've received over that time period, you can just easily track it just like your expenses. And then since there's less transactions with the income, you can actually go back further. It might not be a bad idea to go back like a year. That way you can see like seasonal swings, like if you have a very like seasonal job, or yeah, like people usually say like when they make variable income that there's certain seasons that are really heightened and really really great, and then there's some that are a little slower. So it's like you could start planning ahead where it's like, oh wow, in the summer I make bank, and in the winter I make nothing, right? And you can start kind of planning ahead where it's like, okay, the extra money that I make in the summer I can start like kind of putting aside for those winter months when it's a little more tight. So that's just kind of a way that I like to think about it. Basically, everything boils down to, if you can track it, you should probably do it. And it's going to be a good way to just see your numbers again right in front of you. And then the more data you have on your stuff, guys, like the better and easier it's going to be in the future for you. Okay. So I hope I answered that well for you. Um, Question 4, what's the best way to cut spending without feeling deprived? Okay. This is a great question because I think a lot of people feel like, and a lot of the extreme content on the internet, we'll call it, for personal finance is like basically if you're living paycheck to paycheck or you're in a ton of debt, the thought process is like it's just very extreme, and it's very like, well, you need to like just cut everything. You need to live on rice and beans, like Dave Ramsey likes to say, right? He's half joking. Um, and Dave Ramsey's great, by the way. I think he's helped so many people. So this isn't me like shitting on Dave Ramsey. But I think some of that, it can be a little extreme. Now, side note, if you spend a lot less money, will you be able to save a lot more money? Yes, like fundamentally, the less you spend, the more money you have. That's very apparent. But what we want to do is we want something that's going to last. We want something that's going to be sustained, right? So, yes, could you do like a 1 or 2 month, like super extreme cut back on all your expenses and you just like, you don't do anything. You just eat and you go to sleep and you go to work, right? Yes. But that's not going to work for a year. And we want something that's going to work forever, right? Because, like I said, I've been budgeting for 10 years and that process has evolved for me. It's not, it's just kind of changed. Like the first few years, I was very, very involved, like very intent. Now it's more of a higher level. And there's times when I have to back up and I have to kind of go more intent with it as things pop up in our lives, right? Because things pop up in everyone's life, everyone has a thing. But basically, to get back to what the question was, so what's the best way to cut spending without feeling deprived? So the goals that I talked about when you're doing the 3 month look back, I like to call these your North Star goals. So these are the 2, 5, 10 things that you wrote on a piece of paper or whatever, a Google Doc. And these are the things that you say are most important to you. These are your North Star goals. So now, after you have that list, every sort of money decision that you have, like a spending decision, any time and effort and sacrifice, everything should be going through the North Star goals as like it's like a filter, right? So if you have like something to decide, it's like, well, does this help me reach my, whatever goal this is, or do I think it's going to help me reach it positively or sometimes even neutrally? Or is it going to impact it negatively? If it impacts it negatively, then I definitely don't want to buy the thing or do the thing. But if it impacts me positively or like neutrally, whatever, and it's like, yeah, I think maybe this is a good idea for this goal, then yeah, you do the thing. But how you don't feel deprived about it is, again, this list is your list and it's the things that matter to you the most. So um I'm working with someone now, and one of the things on his list of North Star goals was, he's like, you know what, I've been going to this guy for a haircut for almost 2 decades now, and he's very expensive, but he's basically like family to me. And while I could go somewhere else and save a few dollars for a haircut, it's like this is like a non-negotiable for me. It's like getting a haircut from this guy is going to be on my thing. And I was like, he was almost coming after me like I was going to like debate him on it, right? He was getting all defensive and I was like, "Perfect. No, this is why we make those lists, because this is your list and that you want that on your list. So who's going to tell you that that's not important to you? That's silly. Like this is your list." So, and I know haircut isn't about like haircut's not really being deprived, but you guys know what I mean. So like if you want to not feel deprived, on your list should be some really nice life goals, like maybe some family goals, right? You have some financial goals on there if you're in debt, if you want to build an emergency fund, right? Whatever those are. And then, yeah, you have like, I don't know, you have pizza Fridays with the family or the friends, and you're like, I don't want to miss that. So it's like, okay, then keep doing pizza Fridays. And then as long as you know that like whatever's on the list, we keep, everything else is up for, it's up on the chopping block, right? And that's just how you have to do it. So yeah, it's all up to you, and that's the best part about it. Okay, I'm just gonna take a quick sip here. Okay, so that was number four, guys. How are you feeling with these questions so far? If you have any, if you're watching this now, make sure to drop them in the chat. Again, if you're watching this later, make sure to drop them in the comments. And I want to talk about, I mentioned it a couple times, but my free community, Discipline University. Okay, so here it is in all its glory. The link is down in the description of this video, by the way, if you want to go check it out. But basically, the whole point, the whole sort of goal around this community is helping people find their financial foundations, okay, through budgeting, through mindsets, through different strategies. And it's all the things that I've basically done in my life personally. Again, I've been a corporate accountant as well, so it's like I'm kind of merging both worlds as an accountant and as a person who've gone through a transformation in my own personal finances. And the end goal of this specific group is to help people pay down debt more efficiently. So it's let's build the foundation. Let's do the 3-month look back. We want to try and reallocate the money that we already make. I'm not asking anyone to go out and make more money, do a side hustle, anything like that. It's already in our finances, and we can apply more money to our debt to make it happen a little faster. Okay. Um, so recently, it's been very exciting. This group has grown a lot. We're at 35 members, and Angie's in here. Okay, there's a win in here. I didn't even read that yet. Steven, Sandy, Liam. Yeah, Angie with a win. Watching the video in class about finding an extra $100. So she basically there's in the classroom. I just have a couple videos about I framed it around what I call the power of $100 because the $100 can be very powerful when it comes to paying down your debt more efficiently. I think about if you added an extra $100 towards your debt, there's significant advantages to paying down your debt a little faster because obviously you get rid of the interest faster. So all I'm really trying to do is help people find, $100 or more, right, in their finances every month to apply to their debt to pay it off faster. So that's what she's referring to here. I call it the power of $100. And this is just a couple classroom videos, couple strategy things and implementations. And then inside the community, it's all about the accountability and the camaraderie and the teamwork, and everyone's just like trying to help each other out. So right now, until my calendar completely fills up, guys, like I'm talking completely fills up, and it's getting there, by the way. It's been a lot recently, but I'm taking free strategy calls for all new members that join. And basically, most of the time that turns into like a longer discussion again, because this is a free group. Everything in this community is free, including my time right now. Okay. Again, until my calendar fills up. So I'm just taking calls with everyone, trying to help, trying to get people wins. And yeah, school.com/debt. It's in the description of this video. Now let's get back to the questions. The next question: how can I stop impulse spending and stay disciplined? Yes, this is a tough question for sure. And yeah, I would say it's a challenge for a lot of people. It's like after they go through the 3-month look back, one of the words or phrases that they give me after is that like, yeah, impulse spending or, emotional spending or, irresponsible spending, right? So it's like sort of around that line where it's like, okay, they know that what they've been doing is bad, but now it's in front of them and now they have to confront it, right? Which is a great thing. There's nothing you should be nervous about. And that's why I help people with like the accountability part and joining on calls with people because I think people get I don't know, let me know, down below, let me know in the comments or whatever, but like, do you get nervous thinking about what your finances could look like? Um, because you shouldn't. I mean, it could be scary to confront it, but then once you confront it, it's like, oh, it's like if you like hear a noise outside, you're like, oh my God, that has to be the biggest bear in the entire world. And you go out and it's like a little like squirrel or something. It's like, oh, okay, like we're fine. That's basically what the finances are. It's like, oh my God, there's a huge bear in my finances. You go out, it's a frog. It's like, okay, yeah, we're fine. Everyone's gonna survive. Um, so basically, to answer this question, everything's kind of a trade-off, right? And we don't have unlimited funds, unfortunately, right? We don't have all this extra money. We can just impulse spend on everything. So that's why we make the list, the North Star goals, and everything other than that can be cut because you're telling yourself it's not as important as the other things, right? But one story that I have around this, just to kind of like nail this point home, um, someone I was working with a while ago on his finances, we were going through his budget and there was a line item called retail therapy. And I was like, huh. I asked him, I was like, what is that? Because I had no idea what that meant. And he told me that every time he gets like sad or depressed or, you know, whatever, he would go to like Amazon and he would buy himself a thing to make himself feel better. And I was like, okay. He's like, yeah, this is like my mental health thing. And I was like, okay, got it. I get mental health. Like mental health's very important. Like me personally, I like to um I work out, I exercise every day, and it's not to be like ripped or huge or whatever. It's yeah, it's like it makes me feel good, right? So I'm all for like having people feel good. But I was like, okay, so that, that's fine if that's like one of your important things. But we're talking about, by the way, guys, the budget item, the line item retail therapy. When he did the 3 month look back, there was like $400 one month, 300, and then like 500. So he was basically averaging like 400 something dollars a month in retail therapy. And I asked him, I was like, what kind of things are you buying in this category? And he thought for a second and he was like looking around and he's like, "Yeah, I don't know, I don't remember." And I was like, "You don't remember? Um, that's a problem because you're spending $400 on things that you don't even remember what they are." So again, I'm all for mental health. That's not what this conversation is at all. But he just could not realize that um, he was letting his emotions trigger a decision that was completely negatively impacting his finances. Like, obviously, if he had applied that $400 uh, a month of retail therapy to his debt, he would have gone from being debt free in 15 years to 4 just by making that one change. And again, I told him, I was like, if this is important to you, you should have it on your list, but know that you pretty much you would have to cut a lot of other things elsewhere. And this just seems like it's something that you can maybe like cut back on or do less or try to like, um, I don't know, find a better way to sort of release that emotion or find a better way to like to help you get through situations. Like you shouldn't be buying things, especially if you don't remember what they are. Okay. So you can stop impulse spending and stay disciplined if you use the North Star goals as your filter. That's kind of how the really long-winded way of how I'm going to answer that. Okay, so this next one, question 6, it's a two-parter. So how do I budget for an emergency fund while paying off debt? And the question that was sort of similar, how do I stick to my budget when unexpected expenses keep coming up? Now, I think these are kind of aligned questions. I like both of them, but they were sort of I could knock both of them off by talking about the same thing. So, um, the first kind of part of the question is like, how do I budget for two things at once, the emergency fund and paying off debt? Normally, my thought process would be, let's focus on one thing. Because if you think about it, I think too many people are distracted. And this isn't where I'm going to take this, where you think I'm going to take this, by the way. I just want to talk this through and then I'm going to explain my reasoning. Um, we as society and as humans are extremely distracted with what we're doing with our money. There's so many opportunities to be distracted. There's so many places to put it. There's so many people on the internet that are saying, "Hey, I put my money over here, and it like shot to the moon, and I'm doing this over here, and it's boom! Look at all these money making opportunities, right? Everyone's just making money online. No one's ever losing money, right? Um, and I think the reason why is there's like stats out there or articles around this where they say like the average millionaire has 7 streams of income. So I think a lot of people hear that and like, huh. So to be a millionaire, I need to have a lot of streams of income, and that's how I do it. The reason why like millionaire pluses, billionaires have all these streams of income, in my opinion, is they got very good at one, maybe two things and made all their money in that, and then they're like, "Crap, I have a lot of money," and then they diversify because they don't want to like if that one thing that they made all their money in craps out, they're at zero, right? So it's like, "Wow, I made all this money. Let me put it in all these places." I don't think, I don't think regular people, us common folk, should be doing something like that. I think we should be focusing our money on one thing. Now, with the caveat of emergency funds and paying down debt. So, to answer the question, I think you should do both at once. And here's why. So, and this part will tie into the How do I stick to my budget with unexpected expenses? So, if you've ever played a video game in your life where the main character has a health bar, right? So think of your favorite game or one that you played recently where you're running around, main character has a health bar above you or whatever. When you're in the game, think of the health bar as your emergency fund, and think of the destination or the end of the level as your financial goal. So in this case, we'll call it paying off your debt. Okay, which is great. When you're going through the game, everything's going great. You're going to, through campaign mode, whatever. And all of a sudden, the screen starts flashing red. There's sirens, there's people like shooting at you or whatever. And your health bar is just depleting big time. Now, in the game, what do you do? Do you risk moving forward at a chance of like, okay, if I die in the game, I have to go back to the last checkpoint or like the start of the whole game? Or do you sign up, you kind of like panic, you freak out, and you're like, "No, I gotta be calm about this." You see over there's a rock, and there's like a med kit thing. So you go behind the rock, you get the med kit, you stabilize your health bar up top, and then you kind of let the bad stuff disappear and go away, and then you continue on your journey, right? Which one of those do you probably do? I would say for most people, you probably try to, prolong the journey. So you go behind the rock, you do the med kit, you do the stabilizing health bar thing, and you wait. This is what happens in real life, guys. So you're going through life. The health bar is your emergency fund. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, an unexpected expense pops up. And that's the thing that's attacking you, right? And you've been making great progress, like paying off your debt, let's say, for example, and you're like, yeah, I got through like the last checkpoint. I'm at the next checkpoint. And then danger strikes. And you're like, crap, what do I do? Now, if you don't have a health bar up top, guess what? You would get attacked once, you die in the game, right? And you have to go back a checkpoint. Now, if you have a health bar up top, you're like, oh crap, I'm being attacked. Let me just hang out over here, get the med kit, and wait. So it's basically like I have an emergency fund. I get hit with something. I don't go backwards. I don't go forwards either, but I don't go backwards, which is the most important thing. Saving money and having an emergency fund helps us from going backwards. It's not going to make us rich at all. And that's not the point of saving. Saving money is like shorter term thinking. But I think a lot of people need to have this little habit built in with this little cushion built in because too many people I talk to are near zero in their bank accounts and they are struggling to like go, get out of that. So build the emergency fund slowly. Even if you build a habit, let's say you're someone with the variable income, right? Let's say you get a check every single week. Would you be able to commit to saving $25 a paycheck if you've never had an emergency fund before? Because I think people are too focused on, again, like optimizing the things because they're reading online like, oh, I need to have 3 to 6 months of expenses. And then they look at how much they spend. It's like, wow, I can't save 15 to $30,000 or whatever the number is. I can't save that. Like, and they get overwhelmed and they think that, oh, this just isn't for me, and they don't do the thing. And that's like frustrating to me. So it's like I would rather you build up the habit, even if it's a small amount. So if yeah, you get paid weekly, 25 bucks. If you get paid like bi-weekly, could you do 50 bucks a check, right? Could you save $100 a month? I hope so. I hope so. And that's kind of what I go through in Dollar Discipline University and what I'm talking about now. It's like, how do you realign your spending to make your goals happen? Because what we want to do is obviously find more money to pay off our debt more efficiently, but it doesn't work if we're like near zero all the time and a thing happens, right? And then you have to stop putting money towards debt, or even worse, go in more debt to pay for a thing that came up like a blown tire or something like that, right? So I think both are really important, and I think I answered that question well. What do you guys think? The next question, we have number 7. What percentage of my income should go towards debt, savings, fun, etc.? This is a great question. A good framework around this, and this is like one of the budgeting strategies that you could do. It was on like the Google thing that I was looking at before, and I like it a lot. It's a great framework. It's called the 50-30-20 budgeting rule. Okay. Basically, what this says is 50% of your income should go towards need items, 30% of your income should go towards want items, and 20% of your income should go towards a financial goal. Okay. It's a great way to kind of think about how to break out your expenses. And this is obviously going to be different. Like if you live in a big city or a rural area, like cost of living is obviously higher in some places and lower in some. So it's just a good framework, right? But there's probably going to be two reasons why someone would fail with this strategy. First is I know that there's a very blurred line sometimes between a need item and a want item. So you just have to be super, super clear about that for you. And don't lie to yourself. Okay. That's number one. So a lot of people have just here's what I see a lot with talking to people. Um, Need and wants is like one item. Yep, thumbs up. Need and wants is like one item. And then you go through the month and then you look back, you're like, "Oh, crap, I didn't put any money towards my emergency fund." And then another month happens, everything's merged together, it's all just you're living life, "Blah, here's all my expenses." And then you get to the end of the month like, "Oh, I was supposed to put more money towards debt this month. Shoot." And it's like this whole thing continues just because you don't have a structure in place. So you need to specifically, specifically break up needs and wants. The next reason why you're probably not going to succeed with this and why a lot of people don't, and how I want you to think about this differently is like I just talked about. People pay for their needs, their wants, they're going through life, they get to the end of the month. Crap, I forgot the financial goal. So what you do is you budget and in a perfect world you automate your financial goals where it's like instead of it's an afterthought, we want to be more proactive with our financial goals. And we want to be able to, obviously, like the need items are critical, right? We need a roof over our head. We need utilities. This day and age, like people need, cell phones, internets, etc. So it's like, okay, those are need items. But then after that, let's do financial goals. So we'll budget for the amount of money that'll help us pay off our debt more efficiently. We'll budget for the $25 a week to just start building a habit of an emergency fund. And then everything else, you know, the afterthought would be the want items. And as long as you don't have those want items on like your pizza Fridays, like if that's on your list, then like okay, that's really important to you. But if it's not, again, those the extra want items are things that we can trim around and try to avoid it that way. Um, but as far as like what percentage of income should go to your debt, what you should try to do is first make your minimum payments. That's first. That should be the main priority. Okay. And I'm not going to go through it in this video, but I have plenty of videos on this channel where I go through the strategies of why at least the minimum you have to do that. And then from there, it's like, can I do $100 more? And I have a debt payment calculator that's also inside of Dollar Discipline University. Put the link in the description, so you can kind of play around with your numbers there. There's a tutorial. Again, I have other videos on this channel that go through very deep, full tutorials on that calculator and what strategies to do for your debt. But there's really no percentage because everyone's going to be a little different, and again, cost of living being different. But I would just focus on like if you've never saved before, just start saving something. You don't have to optimize it. You don't have to put it in some fancy high interest account. Just start building the habit, please. The next question. How can I budget for big goals like buying a house or retiring early? Okay, this is a great question as well. So, and a lot of people want to think like this. They want to think the big thing. They're like, I want to do the big important thing, which is great. But the reason why I don't think a lot of people reach that is because they see the big thing and they're like, wow, this is intimidating. I don't know how to how to buy a house. It's like, I don't know how to save $30,000, $50,000 to buy a house, right? Housing prices are out of this world. How am I supposed to pay for that? Right. So what you need to do, or I don't like to say need, you don't need to do this. What I like to think about is, okay, what's the big goal here? There's typically like a dollar amount, or if you're retiring early, you have to know like how much money you would need to have. Okay. So what's the amount? What's the goal? And then what's the time frame that we're trying to do it in? And then what we do from there is we reverse engineer. So let's say you want to save like $50,000 in, I don't know, 5 years, right? Maybe that's an aggressive goal for you, but just to make the math easy. So in order to save $50,000 in 5 years, you would need to do $10,000 a year. And then per month, you could even break it out. And what is that? Like 800 something dollars, whatever the math is on that. And then you say, okay, based on my current resources and all this other stuff, am I able to put $800 a month towards that thing? And if it's a yes, then it's like, oh, okay, great. Then maybe one, you should, increase your goal a little bit to be a little more aggressive to kind of challenge yourself. And if no, then it's like, okay, if I know I want to get this thing, then what else would I need to do? Well, to get more money, it's very simple. There's three ways that you can actually have more money. One is spend less money. Two is make more money, right? And three is both of them together. You have a lot less leverage, meaning you have a lot. It's a lot harder to just always cut expenses. At some point, you're not going to be able to cut any more expenses. So what I like to recommend is to make more money. And now this might be, this might be this might be tough for people to hear, but you're not stuck in the salary or the income that you make. If you think that, then that's on you for thinking that. Uh, you can look for new jobs. You can increase your skills. You can learn new skills and try to become more valuable in the marketplace in your company. Um, Personally, I've worked at 4 different companies in the last 10 years, and that was because that I am chasing experience, and along with experience comes money. And if I've been somewhere where the growth path is no longer available, or it's the goalposts changed a little bit, like they kind of like moved where the growth path would be, then I just leave, because it's like, well, I'm not going to stay for a 2 to 3% annual raise. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, I used to think back in the day, this phrase that I am worth as much money as someone else is willing to pay me. I used to think about that, and I was like, yeah, this makes a ton of sense, because it's like, yeah, I go to work, I try to impress a couple people, maybe hopefully one of them is my boss, and then hopefully like they say nice things to their boss, and then I get approved for a promotion or a larger raise and more responsibility, and everyone loves me, and it's great. And I thought that was to be true, but now after looking back, I think it's kind of silly. And now I think I am worth how much I think I'm worth. And what that does is it puts the control of my income back in my hands, right where it should be. If I say that I'm worth as much as someone else is willing to pay me, then I am instantly giving the power of my income in my life and all this other stuff to someone else, which is kind of frustrating. So if you think that, you're worth more, then you're going to go out and you're going to do the things to make yourself more valuable. Okay. So reverse engineer the big goal, and how you can break it out really quickly. There's a nice framework. It's called the SMART goals framework, and SMART is an acronym. Stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time. And basically, you just, instead of saying something like, I want to be debt free, it's not a goal. It's a really good thought, right? But it's not a goal. So if you put the SMART framework towards it, where it's like, how do I be more specific? How do I measure it? How can I make this achievable? Depending on how long of a time frame it is. How can I make this relevant to other financial and life goals? And how can I put a time thing around it to create a little more urgency, right? So instead of I want to be debt free, you could say I want to pay off $3,000 of credit card debt in the next 6 months, meaning that I would have to find $500 a month in my finances to be able to make that happen. And I'm going to use the resources in Dollar Discipline University to help make that happen. Yes, that is a shameful plug for Dollar Discipline University, but you get what I'm saying is like that sentence, that really long sentence is much more powerful than I want to be debt free, because you have all these actions that you can take around it and all these measurable things. Because I want to be debt free. Yes, obviously there's an endpoint, being in debt. But it's like, what do I do? It's like, so reverse engineer everything, break it down into months was probably best, or even paychecks. Like that would be really intense in a good way, where you're like, every paycheck, I have to apply this amount of money out of my paycheck. As soon as I get paid, it's gone. It's going to this thing, right? That could be a way to do it. Just reverse engineer. Number 9, how often should I adjust my budget and how do I know if it's working? Guys, these questions are really, really good. Here's how I like to think about it. When people start budgeting, I think people give up because they're not really seeing progress right away. So I totally understand. I totally understand where this question's coming from. But I see every month as a new opportunity to change it. So how often should I adjust my budget? Every month. Every month. Because think about it. Not only are you going to keep learning the skill and understanding your habits better, but let's say like, if we go back to the variable income thing, if your income is way different in June than December, your budget should absolutely be different because of that. But also, like, if you're seeing that you're making the same, we'll call it mistake, or the same thing keeps happening every month, you need to adjust and like try to figure it out. So every month is the new opportunity to change. What I'm finding in talking to people is that the sweet spot of how people are tracking it, or how often people are tracking it, I should say, is once every week. Once every week they're going into their finances, their credit cards, their debit cards, wherever they spend money, and they are looking and tracking their finances weekly. Because after going through the 3-month look back, again, going through your finances for a full month is a beast. So after doing that, you're not going to want to keep doing that every month, and doing it weekly gives you an opportunity to like, oh wow, the first half of the month I was like way over in these couple categories. I have to like really think about how the rest of the month is going to shake out, because if you go through the whole month, you can't change anything for that month. At least if you're doing it weekly, you can sort of adjust on the fly. I would recommend that, at least in the beginning. Um, and then the second part of the question, how do I know if it's working? One, it's working if you are continually doing it. So if you're continually tracking and you're continually thinking about your finances, that in itself is a win, because that means you're building up a habit. So that is a huge win. But in terms of like the numbers, if your budget is getting if your budget and your actuals are getting very close, or like are close, then that's to me that, like, yes, the thing is you're winning as long as you're budgeting for financial goals, and everything else is like, close-ish, whatever. It's not that important to be like pennies on it, right? I would say that that's a win too. Final question here, number 10. We're making great time here. Again, if you're watching this on the replay, if you've made it this far, shoot me your own comments down in the comments. Your own comments down in the comments. Drop a comment down below this video. And if you guys like this, again, I will kind of keep doing this as like a series, and we can keep doing it like a Q&A session. And I'd love to do that. Number 10. How do I make budgeting a habit instead of something I do once and forget it? So this is actually a great question to wrap up kind of the whole video. Um, Kind of everything that we've been talking about, and it starts with creating a goal that's too good to ignore. So if you create something that's like an amazing opportunity, an amazing goal, you're not going to want to not think about doing it, right? Um, and kind of to think back about my story, like I was literally just checking my bank account. And in the last 10 years, my wife and I, last year in 2024, we were able to cross the $1 million net worth line. And I owe it all to budgeting. We paid off our debt about 5 or 6 years ago. We paid off $43,000 worth in 13 months. We drew a line in the sand and we're like, nope. And this was our top North Star goal, and we made it happen. And it's all because of budgeting. So budgeting is one of the skills and habits that are going to feed into uh, reaching a goal that's too good to ignore. It's impossible to reach a goal too good to ignore without budgeting. It'd be like, hey, I want to lose 20 pounds, but I'm not going to track my weight. It's like, well, you're not going to be able to do it because you don't know where you're starting from, how to get there, etc. And I'm going to close on this little story. So I also think it's really important to create small wins in your finances to keep kind of the momentum and keep feeling good about what you're doing. My wife and I, we get paid. We both have 9 to 5 jobs, and We both get paid at the beginning of the month and the middle of the month. Our mortgage comes out in the beginning of the month when we receive our 2 checks, and our 2 checks are higher than the mortgage, so that's a net win for us. In the middle of the month, because we use credit cards for 99% of all the transactions that we pay those in the middle of the month and when we also get paid. So we get paid on the, like, 15th or whatever, um, we get paid and our checks are higher than the all the rest of our expenses. So we get another win there. So we get 2 wins every month. So it's 24 small wins every month. And then with the excess money, for years, we've been putting it towards the most important financial goal. So at one point is paying down the debt. We built up our emergency fund a little more. We put money towards our retirement. We have two kids now, so we're putting money towards their future education. So it's always like the next thing. And that's just kind of what we've been doing, just how we organize our finances. So just keep staying at the thing, keep budgeting. And it's more important to, in the beginning, build a habit than think about the numbers, the X's and the O's, the strategies. That's why I recommend people like, hey, can you save $25 a week? Like, I feel like anyone could be like, yeah, I could save 25 a week, right? And you just build a habit and then you go from there. So if you've made it this far, I really appreciate you. Join Dollar Discipline University. Okay. Again, I'm taking free strategy calls in here, and I've been helping people, um, you know, build their financial foundations to pay off their debt faster, so that we can reach the next financial goal. Because debt is the least efficient thing that you're doing with your money right now. You need to get out of debt because debt's just the biggest wealth killer for you, and it's the biggest wealth generator for the person that's receiving your interest. If you look at how much interest you're paying towards your debt, you're gonna like throw up because it's just gonna be so much money, and that money, it's going to someone. So there's complete industries and just companies, people that are just getting so rich off of other people's interest. So I don't want that to be you. And if you're watching this video, I know that you don't want that to be you. So join Dollar Discipline University. Again, school.com/debt. It's in the description of this video. I'm going live every Thursday night around 7:30 p.m. Eastern. So I'd love to hear from you, even if they're not a budgeting question. Let me know down in the comments what kind of topics you want me to talk about in these videos. And I will see you in the next one.